Chapter 11. Everyone likes dolphins. Mason was engulfed by an uncomfortable wave of sound. Smartly dressed in a light blue shirt, he pressed hard to open the heavy wooden doors of the main hallway in the Montero house. Not wanting to hitch a ride with his mother and risk being seen in the lemon-coloured car, he was running late, and his socks were wet because he had taken a shortcut across country. This had also served in taking the shine off his freshly polished shoes, which were only worn for special occasions. Saturday night had finally arrived, and the mansion-like property was vibrating with melodious sounds, and was decorated from top to bottom in balloons, happy birthday banners, streamers, and photographs of the twins at various stages growing up. Among the pictures, cataloguing their rise from babies to teenagers, there was a familiar print of the two identical American boys when they were only 10. Mason recognized it because a larger version of this print hung in the main family room. He saw it every time he visited Blaine, and it always made him smirk, mainly because Hunter was smiling arrogantly in every other photo, except this one. In this particular shot, he was posed with his hand covering the left side of his face, pulling a miserable expression that could give Pebbles the Gargoyle a run for its money. Making his way through the substantial dwelling, the music became louder and the groups of children grew bigger and started to form crowds. He knew most of the faces, but there were a few he had never seen before, and even a couple people he recognized as attending Rivermouth Academy. Even students that were complete strangers to the twins had found out about the notorious party and desperately tried to sneak in under the radar. This was due to Hunter being just as famous and popular in their schools despite not attending them. Finding himself outside, in the centre of a spacious enclosed courtyard, the band was playing a classic rock song, which was one of Mason's firm favourites. They performed on a brightly lit stage, surrounded by hordes of dancing teenagers. Begrudgingly, he thought, it was a better decision to have a band instead of a DJ, and was shocked to find that he and Hunter shared the same taste in music. Over the other side of the courtyard, and into the dining room, tables upon tables of party food, fizzy drinks, and the much-talked-about chocolate fountain were laid out in a fantastic display. In the middle of the room were not one, but two mountainous birthday cakes, both piped in different coloured icing. Attempting to locate Blaine and wish him a happy birthday, he ventured out of another set of doors onto the endless stretch of decking in the back garden. The ground surroundings were similar to the view at his home. Isolated by trees and fields, they were lit up by countless paper lanterns of all shades. It looked like they were celebrating Chinese New Year, minus the pantomime dragons. Soaking up the attention, he located the birthday boy, but it was the wrong one. Hunter was in his element, surrounded by his right-hand man Solomon and Olivia, who almost made Mason's jaw fall to the ground when he saw her. She looked simply stunning in her dusky pink party dress. Mesmerized by her beauty, he almost missed the startling fact that Abigail, her shadow, was not orbiting her like usual. All the other popular kids from Darwin Grammar were stroking Hunter's ego, congratulating him on the amazing party, all the while being adored from a distance by smitten young girls. Smartly dressed in designer clothes, he wore black shoes and trousers and a dark wine-colour shirt, which was partially buttoned up, but what was most noticeable was the shiny piece of jewellery draped around his olive-tone neck. Oscillating with all different colours from the lights, he wore a brown beaded necklace with a white gold shark fin-shaped pendant. Engraved on the gleaming accessory was a single subtle H. He was enjoying showing off what must have been one of his many birthday presents, which probably amounted to the same cost of all 15 years' worth of Mason's. Mason made his way over to speak to his arch-nemesis. His footsteps made a hollow sound as the boards of the timber walkway slightly bowed underneath him. Hunter's groupies stood facing him, obstructing Mason's path, until Hunter gave the word for his subjects to step aside, granting Mason an audience. "Hunter," Mason casually said, "happy birthday. Have you seen Blaine?" Disgusted by Mason's lack of respect and unenthusiastic wishes. "I don't know. Maybe he's hanging around by the swimming pool. Why not look there? You don't normally need an excuse to go wandering round my home." Mason didn't rise to Hunter's attitude. He knew he despised his friendship with Blaine. He turned away to continue the search for his best buddy, but there was no way he was going to go near the Montero's private swimming pool, and guessed Hunter would have sent him on that path on purpose. "Wait a minute," Hunter's voice commanded. I know it's my birthday, and I should be the one receiving presents, but I have a gift for you, May." Mason stood motionless, doubtful that Hunter was going to give him anything that resembled a gift, but decided not to be rude and turned around and heard him out. Removing an item wedged in a pocket of his expensive trousers, he revealed a thin red satin ribbon. Attached to the short band of material was a round clear plastic ball, with a photo of a baby inside. Worded around the translucent orb of the newborn read, "Mason's First Christmas." Mason recognized at once this was a sentimental homemade festive decoration, which hung on the Christmas tree every year. "What are you doing with that?" he demanded. "I found it in school," Hunter replied. "In Mrs. Frost's class. In a cupboard, while I was looking for a nosy spy." Mason called Hunter a liar and refused to believe that he was telling the truth, and then snatched it from his rival's hand, only then remembering it must have somehow got there after Chloe had teleported into his attic. "Honestly," Hunter said disapprovingly, tutting and shaking his head, "why is it whenever there's a photo opportunity, you feel the need to wear a dress? First a kilt, and now this." The ongoing joke had gone far enough. "It's a christening gown, you idiot," Mason corrected, and walked off in a huff, as the group of students, including the onlookers in the distance, laughed and giggled. Anxiously wasting time contemplating what to say and do if the moment presented itself, a nervous Blaine walked up and down the length of the poolside, with his head down, staring at his bare feet and his hands in his pockets. He decided it was time to put his shoes and socks back on and return to the centre of the party to enjoy himself. This was easier said than done, as every time he decided to rejoin the celebrations, his subconsciousness intervened and said, "Just one more minute, then I'll be ready." His heart was pounding with panic and excitement, as he knew Abigail, the girl he had a crush on, along with half the school, was nearby and was informed by his brother that she liked him over everyone else. It was now or never. As the lofty, less confident twin turned, partially wiped his fringe away from his eyes, tucking in his shirt, which was identical to Hunter's, but in navy, he was taken aback to see Abigail. She was walking like she was on a catwalk, dressed in a mint green gown, looking like an Atlantis princess, amongst the impeccable aquatic tiled surroundings, making her way over to the far side of the pool to meet him. "You're a hard man to find," Abigail said, smiling, "but your brother told me where I could find you." Not remembering telling Hunter where he was hiding out, he was hypnotized by Abigail's exceptional eyes. Foregoing wearing colour-changing contact lenses, her heterochromia eyes were proudly on display, staring right back into his. Blaine was amazed by the appearance of her mystical, icy cold blue eye, and was astonished by how warm and soothing her brown eye looked. As his mind wandered, he got lost in thought, trying to figure out which one was the most beautiful, but was unable to decide which one he preferred best. Abigail interrupted his thoughts. "So what do you say?" Too occupied to hear the question, he began mumbling, stringing together a sentence that was muddled and unclear, adding a few "yes" and "mms," hoping by chance to answer correctly. Tired of waiting for the bashful boy, she flung her arms around his neck, stood on tiptoes, and pulled Blaine's head down so his lips met hers. Locked in an embrace, he felt her hands move up from his neck, and her fingers lightly ruffled his thick dark brown locks. Blaine felt like he was dreaming, as he received from Abigail his first ever kiss, which was the only present he really wanted for his birthday. Not wanting the moment to end, Blaine's mood was about to change as he moved in to lip lock again for another kiss. "Oh, Hunter," Abigail whispered. Coming to an abrupt stop, he jerked his head away, grabbed her shoulders, and held her back. "What's wrong?" Abigail inquired in a bewildered voice. "You called me Hunter," Blaine replied, annoyed. Abigail looked at the upset boy and said reassuringly, "No, I'm sure I didn't." Desperately wanting to believe her, Blaine moved in closer, but his fears were confirmed when he caught his reflection in the swimming pool. Bending down next to the edge, his mirror reflection rippled along the water, which was odd, as it should have remained still, as there was nothing to disturb the surface. But he was able to see through the choppy motion that while he was busy enjoying one of the most memorable events of his life, Abigail had been busy shaping and moulding his hair into the exact same mohawk style as his brother's. Feeling hurt, with his pride dented, he tried to keep his eyes from welling up. "If you want to make out with my brother, why don't you ask him?" Blaine demanded. She had been busted, but acting like she had done nothing wrong, Abigail replied in a flippant manner, Well, I would, but I can't. He's dating Liv, and she's my best friend. Stunned by her straightforward truth, he was more shocked when she further asked, So, do you want to make out or not? What's Hunter got that I haven't? Abigail considered the question for a moment, until she said dreamily, I don't know. He's just Hunter. He's cool and confident like a shark. Now focusing her attention on Blaine, she said, And you? You're like a… Blaine's heart sank as he predictively answered, A dolphin. Exactly, Abigail exclaimed, and as she heard the band finish a song and begin to play another, she walked past Blaine, snubbing him, and made her way back to the courtyard to find her friends. It should have been the best party ever, but Blaine stood, alone and depressed, not wanting to celebrate. Angry with everyone, including his brother, for not getting his facts right, he put his hands on top of his head and demolished the mohawk like it was a stone wall, leaving his mop-like hair messy and dishevelled. Walking past the side of the pool to retrieve his shoes and socks, in a mood that was not his normal placid self, anger swelled deep inside him. He kicked up at the water in a moment of pent-up aggression. Whoosh! A raging tidal wave shot out before him, rose out of the pool and came crashing down over the edge, flooded the side and smacked into the mosaic tile wall. No way, he said, amazed at the feat of his kick. He stood, shell-shocked, as the water started to run backwards, returning to the pool. But before he had time to process what happened, he heard the noise of a person struggling, someone in need. Looking in the other direction, towards the doors that led to another landscape garden, he spied a pair of legs dangling from a window, trying to break into the house. Balancing on a wheelie bin to give herself extra height, Jessie Sung had managed to pull open the top window wide enough to allow the width of her tiny slim body to fit through. There was, however, only one problem with her plan. The small Chinese girl, age 14, who was barely taller than a typical 10-year-old, had no bin on the other side to drop onto, and it was a long way down. Clinging to the edge of the windowsill, she started to panic and call out for assistance, surprised and relieved when a large pair of hands were positioned under her arms and told her it was okay to let go, her pale fingers unclenched, allowing the blood to recirculate and return to her skin's normal colour. As the towering figure held her like a toddler, she was set down to the floor. Pleased to have her feet firmly back on the ground, she turned towards her rescuer, clutching at her chest, trying to slow down her breathing. The youngest of 4 children, Jessie Leah Sung, was tired and continuously annoyed by her overbearing parents. She was a typical tomboy, and she yearned to play alongside her 3 older brothers, climbing trees, playing soccer, and causing as much mayhem as possible. But all the while she was confined indoors to rest, and not allowed to join in any of her siblings' mischief. The scrappy, short-haired girl was given strict orders not to over-exert herself. Born with a condition called SVT, a temporary disturbance to the rhythm of the heart, caused by an extra electrical pathway, this had the tendency to override the organ's natural pace. She experienced problem periods of an abnormally fast-beating heart. Palpitations, dizziness and chest pains were eased with the aid of medication, and steering clear of stress and emotional upset. But on some occasions, she would even lose consciousness, and these symptoms could last for 1 or 2 weeks. Missing a great deal of school and isolated from her friends, she found comfort in the wonders of the natural world through the National Geographic Channel, schooling herself in nature's miracles. With her heart acting as a less effective pump, overconfident, she refused to let her condition hinder her abilities, and was determined to achieve her goals. She had tiptoed out of the house without her parents' knowledge, all dressed in black, complete with a beanie hat leaving only her face exposed, with a master plan to be back home before anyone noticed. A few calm, deep breaths later, her heartbeat slowed to normal, and the gutsy girl lifted her head to thank her saviour. "Why didn't you just use the door?" Blaine asked, perplexed. The young intruder's narrow eyes flickered from side to side, making sure they were alone from prying eyes. "Shh! Keep this under your hat. I'm crashing this shindig," Jessie whispered, and informed Blaine that rich people provide a fantastic buffet. "I'm going to chow down on all the free food. Then I'll stealthily sneak out like a ninja, and no one will be any the wiser." Speaking of keeping things under your hat, Blaine noticed the front contours of Jessie's black beanie. Protruding out ever so slightly was a bulge of cotton wool padding and bandage tape from under the rim. Jessie was the student with amnesia. the girl who had seen everything the day Alice Turner was stabbed at the museum. Poking obvious holes in Jessie's plan, Blaine quizzed the risky rebel, making sure she had all her faculties. "Jessie, firstly, you do realize I live here. Secondly, half the party is mine. And lastly, I invited your whole class, including you." "Details, details," she told him in an unconcerned voice, waving a hand in a dismissive manner. "Have they cut the cake yet? The cake's the best part of the party." Blaine shook his head. Sized up like David and Goliath. "Are you sure?" she interrogated her tall witness. Blaine gave Jessie another concerned look. After all, she did hit her head hard, causing her to crack her head open. No one could blame her for passing out. Anyone would have done the same if they had witnessed the horror of their best friend being attacked, and with Jessie's ongoing heart problem, she was more than lucky just to come away with a bump to the head. "I'm sure they haven't cut the cake yet," once again informing the forgetful food fiend that this was his party, and it was his job to carry out that honour. Using her powers of deduction, Jessie considered why Blaine was all alone in the pool area while the party was going on all around him. Noticing he was not his happy-go-lucky self, she dropped her assertive attitude. "You keep asking if I'm okay. But what about you? You seem sad. What's wrong?" Blaine, with his hands back in his pockets, eyes rolled down to the direction of the floor, slumped his shoulders, and glumly announced, "I'm not a shark. I'm just a feeble dolphin." Reaching frantically to her left wrist, Jessie searched through a charm bracelet, thumbing her way through all the different shaped trinkets until she came across the one she was looking for. Waving a small golden dolphin charm under Blaine's nose, or as close to it as she could due to the extreme difference in height, she proudly told the disheartened boy, "But I like dolphins." Scuffing a bare foot on the ceramic surface, he said forlornly, "That's the problem. Everybody likes dolphins, but they just don't love them." She couldn't make Blaine feel better about himself, but she did have an area of expertise. "Well," Jessie said, "who would want to be a shark anyway?" Seeing that she had caught Blaine's attention, she continued, "Sharks are continuously being hunted, and their life expectancy is about 25 years, while the killer whale is technically from the dolphin family, and their life expectancy is 60 years, more than twice as long, and there's absolutely nothing feeble about them." With his mood lifted a little, Jessie made a hand movement, gesturing him to the door that Abigail had left from. "Well, come on," she said. "What's the point?" Blaine asked. She let out a breath of annoyance. "Because we can't have any cake until you cut it. And they say I'm the one with amnesia." Blaine bent down to slip back on his socks and shoes. Jessie went on ahead, opening the door. Before she exited, she yelled back over the music, "Oh, and Blaine, there's another thing a dolphin's got that's more than twice as long as a shark's." And with a half smile, she gave Blaine a cheeky wink and disappeared from sight without giving him the answer. Replacing his footwear, he understood what Jessie meant, and with a huge smile, he laughed. The glass doors to the dining room had been pulled back, so there was now a gaping hole leading to the courtyard, where everybody had gathered. The Montero twins were each stood behind one of the colossal cakes with their parents. Hunter's cake had different colours of red, and he was most annoyed that a disrespectful thug had gouged out a crater-like line of icing with their finger, whilst Blaine's was left untouched, piped in many shades of blue. There was a hush, and the birthday boys gave their speeches. After they thanked everyone for coming, the crowd sang happy birthday. Hunter went on to say it was the best party ever, and he was sure their 16th would be even better. With all the attention on him, Hunter continued to bask in his own glory, secure in the knowledge that on Monday he would walk the corridors of school with everyone talking about it. While giving another speech that could rival any at the Oscars, from behind a curtain a female voice interrupted, "Just shut up and cut the damn cake!" Hunter was furious. Heads turned, laughing, to see who the stupidly brave culprit was, but no one could tell. Blaine regarded Hunter's irate face and chuckled to himself, knowing the exact identity of the break-in buffet bandit. As the cakes were about to be cut, the band started playing again, "For he's a jolly good fellow," but as soon as they began, the power went out, along with all the lights. In the surprised moment of silence, Hector Montero told his son's guests it must have been a blown fuse, and for everyone to stay calm and remain where they were. But when telling a bunch of teenagers to do something, they naturally do the opposite. With the courtyard surrounded by four walls, it was shaded in darkness, and inside was just as bleak, as others wandered around. Mason, bored of waiting, headed outside into the back garden, where it was less congested. The November air had grown cold, and the garden retained its colourful glow due to the mass of solar lighting. It was a calm night, and Mason thought it was odd when he heard the bushes rustling back and forth. It wasn't until he heard the muffled whimpering voice he instinctively rushed across the grounds into the undergrowth. Glimpsing something pink, he stuck his arm out to grab whatever was inside. To his astonishment, it was a warm, slender arm, and he pulled. Falling backwards out of the bush, he felt a body come crashing on top of him. Long tangles of blonde hair lay around his head, as Olivia Davenport was face to face with him. Rolling the girl over, he saw she had a cut lip and was unconscious. He quickly carried her back to the decking, aware that what had ever dragged her in was probably right behind him. Laying Olivia on the ground in her soiled pink party dress, he noticed a thin branch reaching over the decking. Panicking, he snapped it clean off, not knowing his own strength, and a pair of bright glaring eyes shone forth from the tree-like bushes. Holding the branch like a baseball bat, he hollered, "Come on!" at the mysterious abductor. "What are you waiting for?" Fueled by pure adrenaline, he swung at the air, and then came a flash as all the inside and exterior lights beamed brightly, making Mason's blue eyes twinkle ruby red, just like they did in photographs. The intruder in the distance disappeared into the thicket. Standing over Olivia, gripping his wooden weapon, Mason reassured, "It's okay, Liv. I've got you now. You're safe." Just like a hero from a movie. She opened her eyes, grabbed his waist tightly, and wouldn't let go. The corner of his right eye flickered along one of the bedroom balconies. As he saw a purple figure vanish into the dark, he looked up to inspect where this onlooker had gone, and heard an angry voice. "Get away from her!" Mason turned to his left, and he was met by a fist to the face, and he literally hit the deck. Staggering back to his feet, blinking to refocus his eyes, he saw his assailant was none other than Hunter, threatening him to give him an excuse to smack him again. "Have you lost your mind, you idiot?" Mason demanded, pressing his hand to his aching face. Not listening, Hunter told Olivia to get back in the house and call the police, as Solomon and others appeared from inside. "No!" Olivia cried. "He saved me, Hunter! He saved me!" "See?" Mason yelled, hoping the message would sink into Hunter's thick skull. "Well, what am I supposed to think? It looked like you were trying to beat her with a stick," Hunter said, defending himself. "What?" Mason shouted, unable to comprehend Hunter's stupidity. "Why would I attack Liv with a stick?" Powerless to control himself, Hunter blurted out, "Maybe because she looks better in a dress than you, May." Mason was enraged. "That's it. You're going down for good this time." Mason leapt into the air towards Hunter, brandishing his clenched fists, but was halted in mid-air by the thick, strong arm of Solomon, who locked Mason's arms behind his back, preventing him from doing any more harm to Hunter. With the whole party converged outside in the back garden, they had heard him yelling insults at Hunter, and he decided to teach Mason a lesson. After he nodded for Solomon to hold Mason still, he lunged his fist again to his captive's face, but just before the moment of impact, his arm was seized and another arm wrapped around his neck, restraining him in a headlock, and Hunter heard the words, "I don't think so, brother. Not again." When the police turned up to question witnesses, the party was officially over, and everybody except Mason had gone home. Detective Benjamin Kingsley was heard talking from inside to his superiors over the police radio. "Yes, everyone's just fine, shaken, but you're not going to believe what we found. I don't know what could have done it." Holding an ice pack over his left eye, Mason sat next to Blaine, telling him the whole story, just as he had told the police. As the two best friends sat watching, 4 officers appeared from the bushes where he had discovered Olivia Davenport. The men carried a full, heavy stretcher. As they came close into the light, the boys saw the mysterious shape of the body underneath a blanket. As the stretcher was loaded into the back of the van, the blanket slipped and rolled off. Blaine and Mason looked at each other confused, as they saw the remains of a half-eaten cow carcass.